Hello and welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show, very much not recorded in the afternoon. Now, in the past on the show, we have talked about proportion and how it's something you should generally abide by. In this episode we're going to be kind of ignoring that because we're drawing Bane. Now, as per usual, we have done our base sketch already. But there is something I want to demonstrate before I start drawing anything. And yeah, obviously I've made him quite big. And I did use reference. So, what I did was, what I might do here is I'll just show off some of the little things. So I divided the reference image into pieces because naturally any human that I use as reference is still going to look like a human in size, and Bane very much is bigger than a human. So, a normal human at least. So, if I just... So yeah, you can see here that I divided certain bits. I even made the waist a little separate here so that he looks taller. And then his arms are much wider apart because he's supposed to be quite a wide man. I wouldn't normally demonstrate my reference in such a way, but such is life. But yeah, we can kind of get moving now. I may say this now, but yeah, I may have to tap out in the middle of this and then record the rest on a different day because it's late. It's not early anyways. It is not the afternoon. So yeah, well, I'll start anyways. Now I may as well say this now. This is in fact a redesign, as I normally do, and this is a redesign mostly based on the Lego Movies design, because I like how that looks, of where it's the kind of halfway between the military look and the luchador look, or just the wrestler look as a whole. I'm a big fan of how that version looks. I'm making him look a bit more like Kraven the Hunter with the way this vest looks, though, the way I'm furring it currently. But yeah. Yeah, it is that kind of a redesign. That's what I'm going for, at least. I've just made it so that he doesn't have like the movie mask on over his luchador mask, because that feels a little unnecessary to me. So I've decided, yeah, he's gonna just have his normal mask, but still, like, the sleeveless big coat and all his tubes and everything are still there. I'm one of those weird artists who likes drawing hair, so that kind of applies to fur as well, where I do quite like drawing it, because you can just kind of do whatever with it, and you can have these little bits kind of coming off and going out everywhere, and that type of thing, of where it's like kind of pouring out and all this, of where you're getting the little kind of hair bits, the little small hairs and fibers sticking out in all different places. And yeah, like these little bits and all that, of where it just kind of adds texture, as they say, and things like that, where it just kind of adds to the piece as a whole. You know, maybe the idea of Bane having a collar on his coat which is almost as tall as his head, which says something whenever he's that big. Maybe the idea of having a collar that tall is maybe a bit absurd. In the same sense, he is that big, so it's kind of already absurd. Now that I've done all the fur, which is realistically the hard part, we can move on to doing the rest of it. Excuse me. But yeah, I decided to give Bane the same kind of like weird vest he has in his original appearances, in his kind of classic look. This little super low cut vest that he has, which shows off basically his entire upper body, and is I don't think would classify legally as clothing. But yeah, that's what's next, is the upper body. And yeah, you might have seen me put in these kinds of lines. Hold on here while I fix this. But yeah, you might have seen me put in these kinds of lines around here. And so generally speaking, whenever someone who is absurdly ripped is flexing, you'll see these almost like tears in their flesh. These like shapes which look like their skin is ripping asunder. And naturally, because of how jacked Bane is, he would have many of those showing off, and also the fact that he is rife with steroids. Well, I said earlier on that we'd be abandoning proportion. It's technically untrue, because Bane, despite how big he is in proportion. I've just altered those proportions a little bit to make him big, because his head is about the size of a normal man's head. It's still big. It's still bigger than a normal man's head. It's proportionate to his body, but I've made it a little smaller, as you would guess, than the rest of his body, and I've brought it down a little bit so that his shoulders seem bigger. And I made his arms out further than his body so that it makes his arms look bigger. I brought his torso and his legs a little further apart so that his body looks bigger. A lot of little simple stuff like that. But where it is within proportion, it's just a little bigger. And that's the general idea of what I was kind of doing whenever I was concepting this out. Is that, yeah, I just pumped up the size a little bit. I say a little bit, a lot. So if you're wondering what I'm doing with these little circles here, the idea that I'm doing is that they're little they're plug areas for the tubes, but they're not in those right now. And say maybe there's a few other little ones dotted around the place like that. I'll have to color these in different color later on, just so that I know that they're supposed to be a different material than the rest of his arms, or than the rest of the gauntlet. But yeah, that's the idea, is that there are little areas where more tubes can go in, just to kind of fill out the look a little bit more. But yeah. The idea that I'm going for here is that the little venom majigger is in the back of his coat, rather than being like proudly like sticking out of his back. It's inside the coat. It would still be in his back, it's just being concealed by the coat, if you want to think of it that way. So we've managed to cook through quite a bit of the upper body here, but yeah, now we've got the legs. And so naturally Bane's got his big military boots, because that is what he would wear. And so I'm going to give him the big baggy trousers as well. but he needs a thick belt, a big thick belt, because that's a very kind of wrestling thing, is to have a really thick belt. And also, he is a huge dude, so he would need to have a belt that he can actually buckle. This in particular is probably going to make his proportions look a little weird. Just purely because of how baggy I'm going to make these trousers. Just realizing this would probably be a cross lace deal, but I'm not going to bother fixing it now. I've already done it. It's already been done. I've not got time nor the patience to fix that. Okay, our big white boy is drawn. We're 53 minutes in, so I'm debating whether or not I could or should call it here for now. And, you know, I'll at least get the dots done. We'll see what happens after that. You, dear viewer, won't notice whenever I do make the change. I'll just get straight into it whenever I decide to do that. But oh, I just realized I forgot to put in a detail. His little head cable, or his little head tube. I forgot to put that one in, but I can just do it now. Right. So I can get through the dots and we'll see where that leaves us. So I don't want to be doing this for too long. I've already been recording for nearly an hour, so we'll see. We'll see what I end up with. You know, something which I wanted to mention actually is that I'm pretty sure the way I've drawn Bane here in terms of his size is probably a decent bit bigger than how I did the Thing, or yeah, the Marvel Nemesis version of the Thing. But Marvel Nemesis version of the Thing is smaller than how I would normally draw the Thing. I would normally draw the Thing to be about this size. If not maybe a tad bigger, and then I would draw Hulk to be bigger than that, because it stands, Bane here is pretty big, but I feel like characters like Hulk and stuff like that should be really big. But even the Thing is supposed to be more human sized, but he should still be really big, particularly if because he's supposed to be big enough to be able to actually fight the Hulk. I feel like he should be a little bigger. Not giant, but just a little bigger. A little bigger than this. Because again, this is pretty big, but again, bigger than this. Because yeah, we want him to maybe not be dramatically wider than this, but be a little taller. So that he looks a little bit more kind of imposing, I guess. Now that I have the dots done, I think I'm going to call this half, I guess, of the recording here. Okay, so I'm back. It is a day later, and now we gotta color it, and then shade it, and then we're done. Well, more or less. We've got the other usual bits to do, but let's just get this thing done. This. There. Yeah, there it is. Alright, let's just do it. I'm going to very quickly do the background. And for the background, I think I'm just going to do something simple, like I think I'm going to have like green and purple, something like that in the background, because those are going to be colors that you aren't really going to see much of. And make it like a real electric green in the background. And then something like a really deep kind of bluey purple. Yep, that looks good to me. That's our background color. You know, something which I always find weird about the white on Bane's mask is that it looks an awful lot like Spawn. But obviously Bane is a lot older than Spawn. But yeah, it's just kind of funny how similar those things look. Because yeah, I guess the more accurate thing to say would be that Spawn looks an awful lot like Bane. Something which I was going to do, but I'm not sure if I'll still do it, is with Venom's cubes. I don't know, I should probably turn off the background for this. What I was going to do was that I was going to have them be luminescent, which I might still do. I think what I'll do here is I'll have them be a paler color and then have them like glow a little bit a different color. And let's always have that be behind it. I should probably put this onto this. Yeah, I can see it now. Right, so now I'm going to make this glow, and we'll see how well this works. It might not work very well at all, because the background is green. So this is the thing, it might not work very well at all. So what I want is for them to be like a really, really vibrant green, so that it stands out quite a bit from the background here. But I don't know how well that's going to work. This is kind of verging in on yellow, which I don't want. Don't want it to be yellow. Now when the texture goes on, this will be a little bit more dispersed, so I'll have it like stick pretty close here. I think that's okay. It's got this kind of almost like ghostly look to it, which isn't exactly what I'm going for. So I'll maybe adjust it a tad more. See what we can get out of it. Yeah, that looks a little better. It's still hard to see on this side. I don't really think there's much I can do about that at this point. You can still tell that it's glowing, which is all it really needs to do. That's all you really need to be able to tell, is that it's glowing. seem strange that I decided to do this, but I like to use multiple different kinds of black here. And the main reason for that is that in Nightfall, which is where, or just in Bane's early appearances, which is where he has this like wrestler vest, it's usually kind of bluish, but I don't want all of his black to be that kind of bluish black. I just want some of it to be that. Like I want his mask to be a proper black, and then his gloves and boots to be a proper black as well. But yeah, I want his mask to be that kind of black. Now we'll see, because to be honest, it looks a little weird when paired with the rest of it. But we'll see. How does it look whenever it's in this? It looks better whenever it's here, to be honest. Keep nearly knocking the mic over, and it's just creating issues. Every time I reach over to fix something there, I end up knocking the mic. It's very frustrating. There really is like a weird Craven Hunter energy to this that I really wasn't expecting, so I need to maybe change the color of this a little bit. Maybe make it a different kind of color. Okay, I think that's fixed now. I think it's looking a little bit more like Bane rather than Craven. But yeah, what's next? Now I need to shade, which maybe may get a little difficult because of the glowiness. Should be fine though. Should be fine. I don't think I'm gonna do any kind of like border or anything like that with this. I think it's just gonna be simply just this shading, and then basically I'm done. Okay, that's the darks. Now we gotta do the lights. And then we're nearing the end. Nearing the end of all this. Okay, that's all the shading done. So there's a few itty bitty little bits that we've got to do, and then we're done. So what do we have to do? We need to sign it. What's the next big thing that I need to make sure I remember to do is, yep, do the signature. Last thing I want to do is forget to do that, because that would be embarrassing. But yeah, let's throw down the signature, then we'll do our light line. Okay, that's the light line done, which means we've got a few little itty bitty things left to do, and then we're done. So first of the last things on the agenda, I was really struggling to wrap my head around that, but that would be the gradient map. So the thing that we're going to do with the gradient map is going to be a little different than I would normally do. Generally speaking, with the gradient map I usually go with the colors that form up the background, so that's the kind of basis for me to remember. I'm not going to do that. The colors that I'm gonna make something which is a kind of a which doesn't really have any green in it as my gradient map. So we're gonna see how that looks. We'll experiment here. But the thing that I'm gonna be doing is that the kind of the gradient map that I was using for a lot of the other Batman characters, where it's a purple and then a red. Purple for the darkest and then red for the lightest, something like that. Because that's a kind of a good looking gradient map generally. Let's see what this has done. Wow, that really washes out the green, but it also emphasizes the blending between the green and the purple, oddly enough. It's a weird little thing. It blends our blacks together a little better. They're still fairly distinct, but they're a little bit more blended, which is what I was looking for. So now I need to throw in the texture, which is something which I forgot to just prepare beforehand. That would have been convenient if I had done that, but that's just not within my nature to do things that would make my own life easier. This is just how I am. Okay, yeah, here's our texture. So, do the old rotate, and then make it bigger than the frame, and then make it about 40%, and then make it an overlay. And so, how does this make everything look? It definitely disperses the glow a little better. The glow now disperses a lot nicer than it was before. Before it was looking a little too solid, but now it's at least kind of, yeah, like fading out a little bit in just that right way. Exactly what I was looking for. But yes, I believe we are done. So we didn't really talk about much, because for this half of the recording, my voice was very tired. So I haven't really spoken very much in this section, but in the first section we talked a little bit about proportions and stuff like that. That's the kind of the main topic, I guess, would be the proportions. And as you can see, Bane is vaguely in proportion. His proportions have been adjusted. Obviously everything is proportionate to him, which is the important part. You don't need to necessarily have things be proportionate to how they are to a normal human being. You just want them to be proportionate to how the drawing is. So for example, you can have characters who are big and bulbous and cartoony looking, but still have things be proportionate. And again, proportions are a thing of relevance, of where the proportions in this instance of where, yeah, we still want him to be very big, but we do want him to have the shape of the general shape of a human. So we don't want him to have like big gorilla arms or anything like that. So his arms are still at a kind of a normal place in his body, relative to where everything else is. But yeah, that's the general point of what I was kind of touching on with the proportions. I don't really remember if I went through all that kind of stuff in the previous part of the recording. I couldn't tell you. But yeah, what else did we talk about? We talked a little bit about the design and stuff like that, but it's basically just the Lego Movie design, but made a little bit more skewed towards the kind of the wrestler look rather than the movie look. But yeah, I think that's everything. I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Just to kind of wrap things up at the end there. But yeah, so if you like the video, do as you normally would. Subscribe if you want. There's no pressure. You don't have to, but it's just something I kind of have to say. And yeah, um, I always mention sharing and stuff like that, but I don't think that's still a thing on YouTube. I could never remember. It's never a function I ever used, so it's kind of a bit hypocritical for me to expect other people to do that. But still, anyways, um, I guess I will maybe see you in the next one, if you decide to watch that one. But yeah, bye bye.